Imagine standing at the absolute summit of your profession. You have bled, sweat, and sacrificed your entire life to climb a mountain that millions of others have failed to conquer. You plant your flag at the top, you look down at the world, and you expect the people who sponsored your expedition to celebrate you. Instead, you turn around, and they are already walking back down the mountain to throw a parade for someone who hasn't even reached base camp yet. It is the ultimate invisible knife to the back. And right now, in the highly lucrative, notoriously cutthroat world of professional tennis marketing, this isn't a hypothetical scenario. It is a brutal multi-million-dollar reality. We are witnessing one of the most ruthless boardroom executions in the history of sports endorsements. A brand synonymous with greatness is quietly turning the lights out on the best player in the world, while simultaneously building a literal monument to a teenager.
This isn't just about a change in wardrobe, it is about a corporate panic, a $45 million gamble, and a reigning queen who just found out the hard way that winning isn't everything. To really understand the magnitude of what is happening right now, you have to understand how the sports marketing machine operates, specifically when it comes to the swoosh. For decades, Nike has not just sponsored tennis players, they have anointed them. Think about the bespoke, iconic branding they built around Roger Federer's RF logo, the fierce gladiator-like aesthetics they crafted for Rafael Nadal, or the absolute royalty treatment they gave to Serena Williams, complete with custom-designed, diamond-encrusted tournament dresses. In the Nike ecosystem, being the best in the world comes with a very specific set of perks. It means you are the face on the billboard in Times Square. It means you have creative meetings in Beaverton, Oregon to design your own kits. It means you are the priority. But Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning powerhouse of women's tennis, the woman who has utterly dominated the baseline and crushed her opponents to claim the world #1 ranking, is living in a completely alternate reality. Despite holding the highest ranking in the sport, despite holding Grand Slam hardware, she is being treated like a mid-tier qualifier. The tension has been simmering quietly behind the scenes for the better part of a year, mostly relegated to hushed whispers in the locker room and subtle omissions in promotional campaigns. But then Sabalenka did something you rarely see a top athlete do. She let the mask slip. She admitted to the public that the brand she represents has effectively shut the door in her face. When asked about her gear for the upcoming season, expecting the usual fanfare of a custom-designed champion's outfit, she delivered a quote that sent shockwaves through the industry. And yeah, unfortunately, next season, it's not going to be that special for me. But exactly, let those words sink in. The world #1, a multiple Grand Slam champion, a player who has achieved things that only a microscopic fraction of human beings will ever achieve, forced to publicly swallow her pride and admit that her primary sponsor doesn't think she is special enough to warrant a custom dress. It is a humiliating public slap in the face, and it begs an incredibly uncomfortable question. If being the undisputed best player on the planet isn't enough to get Nike's attention, what on earth is? The answer to that question comes in the form of a young rising superstar from the Philippines named Eala. While Sabalenka was being handed off-the-rack generic outfits and a polite rejection, Nike executives were busy orchestrating one of the most aggressive, expensive, and grandiose endorsement rollouts in recent memory. They didn't just sign Eala to a contract, they decided to rewrite the entire playbook for how they treat a rising star. Just yesterday, the rumors that had been circulating the tennis world finally materialized into a staggering reality. Nike didn't just welcome Eala to the team with a standard press release and a photo shoot on a clay court. They flew her out to their global headquarters and unveiled the Eala Gallery. You have to understand the gravity of this. Corporate real estate at Nike HQ is hallowed ground. They dedicate buildings to LeBron James and Serena Williams, creating an entire gallery, a physical space dedicated to framing and highlighting the iconic moments of a player who is just at the dawn of her professional career, is a gesture of absolute, unequivocal faith. It is Nike planting their flag in the ground and screaming to the rest of the world that this girl is the future and they own that future. On top of the gallery space, Nike fast-tracked a custom pair of shoes exclusively for her. This is a privilege that usually takes years of proven Grand Slam victories to achieve, but for Eala, it was part of the welcome package. And then there is the financial commitment. While the exact details of sports contracts are heavily guarded secrets, industry insiders are pegging this deal at an earth-shattering $45 million over 3 years, heavily loaded with performance incentives that could push it even higher. We are talking about generational wealth handed over to a player before she has even reached the absolute zenith of the sport. Why would a notoriously calculated corporation like Nike make such a massive lopsided gamble? Why lavish a fortune and unprecedented corporate reverence on a teenager while simultaneously icing out the proven world #1? To unravel this, we have to look backwards before we can look forwards. We have to look at the ghosts that haunt the boardroom at Nike, specifically the ghost of Coco Gauff. A few years ago, Nike had the inside track on Gauff. They knew she was talented, they knew she was marketable, but they hesitated. They played it safe. They didn't roll out the red carpet. They didn't offer the astronomical landscape-shifting contract. And as a result, New Balance swooped in and stole the crown jewel of American tennis, right out from under their noses. Watching Coco Gauff lift the US Open trophy, wearing a New Balance kit, was a multi-million-dollar black eye for Nike executives. It was a colossal failure of foresight. They watched her become not just a champion, but a cultural icon, one of the most marketable athletes on the planet. The mandate inside Nike became immediately clear: never ever let that happen again.
When you spot the next generational cultural phenomenon, you back up the Brinks truck, you build the gallery, and you lock them down no matter the cost. And that is exactly what they see in Eala. But it's more than just a fear of missing out. Nike's analysts look at the global map, and they see the future of sports consumption heavily pivoting towards Southeast Asia. It is an incredibly massive, rabidly passionate market that has been historically underserved in global tennis narratives. Eala is not just a player to these fans, she is a trailblazer. She is a symbol of immense national pride for the Philippines. When she plays, entire cities tune in. She generates a localized electricity that Sabalenka, for all her raw power and dominance, simply does not possess. Eala represents a pristine, highly marketable narrative, the humble, hard-working prodigy carrying the hopes of a nation on her shoulders. For a brand that literally sells inspiration, she is the perfect canvas.
But this story isn't just about how perfect Eala is. It is equally about how deeply flawed Nike views Aryna Sabalenka to be. In the modern era of brand endorsements, being a champion is only half the job. The other half is being a diplomat, a role model, and above all else, a safe investment. Brands detest volatility, they despise controversy. And unfortunately for Sabalenka, the last 18 months of her career have been shadowed by a dark cloud of PR nightmares that have sent Nike executives running for the hills. The fracture in the relationship didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, agonizing deterioration. The first major cracks began to show during Roland Garros. Following Coco Gauff's victory, Sabalenka made comments that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. In the highly sanitized, carefully curated world of professional tennis, her words were seen as a lack of grace, a moment of bitterness that did not align with the champion aesthetic Nike demands. For a brand that is obsessed with optics, this was a massive red flag. But the situation escalated dramatically at the US Open. During a high-profile, agonizing defeat to Madison Keys, the pressure clearly got to Sabalenka. The optics of her breakdown, the frustration radiating from her side of the court, it all painted a picture of an athlete losing control. But even that could perhaps be forgiven as the heat of battle. What couldn't be forgiven, what reportedly pushed the relationship entirely past the point of no return, were the highly troubling incidents surrounding the WTA finals. Following a devastating loss to Aryna Sabalenka in the final, dark allegations began to surface regarding Sabalenka's behavior behind the scenes. There were whispers and reports of conduct toward her opponents and staff that crossed the line from competitive frustration into unacceptable hostility. Whether these allegations were entirely accurate or slightly exaggerated by the rumor mill almost didn't matter. The damage was done. In the court of public opinion, and more importantly, in the risk assessment meetings at Nike, Sabalenka was suddenly labeled as toxic. You have to view this through the lens of a corporation that spends billions protecting its swoosh. They sponsor athletes to elevate their brand, not to drag it into petty controversies and behavioral scandals. They looked at Sabalenka, the world #1, and realized that every time she stepped up to a microphone or walked off a court after a tough loss, she was a liability. And so, the distancing began. It wasn't an explosive breakup, it was a slow freezing out. Phone calls from Sabalenka's agents were met with corporate doublespeak. Requests for promotional campaigns were quietly sidelined. And finally, the ultimate insult, the refusal to produce a custom kit. It was a deliberate, calculated move to strip her of the prestige associated with being a top-tier Nike athlete. It was a message loud and clear: you may have the trophies, but we control the spotlight. Sources close to Sabalenka's camp have indicated that she is acutely aware of the freezing out and has made multiple attempts to salvage the partnership. She knows the value of the Nike machine, but from every indication the bridge is burned. Nike has found their new shiny object, their safe bet, their ticket to the Southeast Asian market, and they have no interest in looking back. This entire saga exposes the cold, hard, unromantic truth about professional sports. We are conditioned to believe in the ultimate meritocracy. We are told that if you train the hardest, hit the ball the fastest, and win the most matches, the world will be laid at your feet. But the Sabalenka and Eala situation shatters that illusion. It proves that in the modern era, the scoreboard is secondary to the algorithm. Marketability, public perception, and regional demographics are far more valuable currencies than a world #1 ranking. Aryna Sabalenka is learning this lesson in the most painful public way imaginable. She will likely walk onto the courts next season wearing a dress that thousands of amateur club players can buy off the rack at their local sporting goods store. She will look across the tour and see a teenager half her ranking stepping out in bespoke, custom-designed footwear, backed by a $45 million marketing machine that used to belong to her. As for Eala, she is stepping into a pressure cooker of unimaginable heat. She has been handed the keys to the kingdom before she has even fully learned how to drive. Nike has placed a $45 million target on her back, declaring her the chosen one. She now has to prove that she is more than just a brilliant marketing strategy and a pristine public image. She has to prove she can actually conquer the mountain that Sabalenka currently sits on top of. The coming months will be absolutely fascinating to watch. Will Sabalenka use this massive disrespect as fuel, unleashing a revenge tour that makes Nike look foolish for abandoning her? Will she lean into the villain role, embracing the fact that she is the outcast champion? Or will the lack of corporate backing slowly chip away at her aura of invincibility? And what about Eala? Can she handle the astronomical expectations that come with an entire gallery dedicated to her name at Nike headquarters?
One thing is absolutely certain. The tennis world is no longer just a battle of forehands and backhands. It is a war of narratives, optics, and billion-dollar corporate agendas. And right now, Nike has made it perfectly clear who they want to win. Would you like me to help draft a pinned comment that asks your viewers a controversial question about this topic to heavily boost engagement and comments on the video?